the heart of battle.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Turtle Hermit School, a series designed to explore Smash theory and help all of you improve. What do I do in neutral? How do I approach? What moves do I use? When do I go in? These types of questions get asked far too often by players that are still learning the game. Most of you have an understanding of what neutral is, but there's still a little confusion about when to approach your opponent and what exactly you should be doing in neutral. So, today I'm going to outline a few simple techniques to get you started and give you all a deeper understanding about the neutral game. I feel like a lot of people get confused when trying to approach neutral in Smash because it's such an open-ended game. Even though Smash Bros is technically a 2D fighting game, with characters only being able to move in 8 directions, essentially, Smash Bros has mechanics that make it unique from any other fighting game in its genre, simply because your character has more options for movement and spacing than ever before. Let's compare Smash to a much more straightforward 2D fighting game, like Street Fighter V. Street Fighter being the mother of all fighting games. In Street Fighter, you can move forward, move backward, jump forward, jump backward, and jump in place. That is neutral. Moving forward and backward and spacing your hitboxes around your opponent to minimize risk and maximize your reward off of a hit. Now let's look at Smash. In Smash, you can move forward, move backward, dash forward, dash backward, jump forward, jump backward, jump in place, jump forward but not as far, jump forward but move backward still in midair, jump forward and directional air dodge backward, jump forward and directional air dodge forwards, jump onto a platform and then jump again and up B and teleport to the corner of the platform, thus canceling the lag of the up B, and then do another up B, and yeah, you start to get the idea. When I say Smash is an open-ended game, this is what I'm talking about. The neutral game in Smash Bros. Compared to a traditional 2D fighting game is much more complex because each character has a wealth of options to choose from, not only in their movement, but in their attacks as well. This can be overwhelming to a lot of players, and it makes sense because there are so many things that need to be accounted for. So the goal with this video is to break down the state of the game and make it a bit easier to understand so you can more confidently make a decision about what to do in neutral. Your opponent may have hundreds of movement options to choose from, but that doesn't mean all of those options are good, or that it's even likely that they'll do them at all. Nobody is going to jump at you and then directional air dodge away. They'd just be in way too much lag, and it'd be far too easy for them to get punished. Your opponent is going to do something that's safe, minimizing their risk, like jumping towards you and hitting you with an attack that's either safe if it hits your shield, or if it lands, they can push their advantage or get a combo. So let's look at the most common ways people move around in neutral and break down this vast sea of options that is the neutral game into something more understandable and approachable. For this section, I'll be listing all of the most common movement and approach options used and ways to counter them effectively. The most common options used in neutral goes as follows. Dash up into a shield. Jump forward, then attack. Jump forward and then double jump. Dash forward and dash backwards. And falling through the platform and attacking. Despite the many movement options your opponent has, you'll be seeing these options a majority of the time as they are very low risk for your opponent, but if they land a hit, they can do a lot of damage on you. If they approach with their shield in anticipation of you using an attack, and they have a good out of shield option or a good grab combo, then they can punish you if you do indeed attack their shield. If they jump in and use an attack that has a lot of shield damage or a lot of range, then they can hit your shield with a very low risk of a counterattack. And if their attack lands, either they've won neutral and can now push their advantage, or they end up comboing you. By jumping forward, they can bait you into doing something that they can then react to during their double jump. Dash forward can also invite the other player to approach, and then the dash back puts them in position for a punish on a whiffed attack. And lastly, falling through the platform functions the same as a jump-in attack, using a safe move from the platform. These options present low risk but high reward for the opponent. But that doesn't mean there's zero risk. Each of these options has an effective countermeasure that can be used either on reaction or by using good pattern recognition and anticipation, which I'll get into in a bit. Basically, what I'm talking about is making reads. But don't let that scare you, because I do have a handy trick for figuring out what someone's gonna do before they even do it. So stay tuned. Here is the counterplay to each option. Dash up into a shield loses to a dash grab. Jumping forward and attacking loses to either grabbing them out of your shield once the attack lands if it's spaced poorly, anti-airing the attack before it hits you, air-to-airing the opponent, meaning you attack them in the air before their attack lands, or properly outspacing the attack. Jump forward and double jump loses to jump and attack, anti-airing before their attack lands, or catching the opponent's landing with a grab or a dash attack. Dash forward and dash back loses to a dash attack or any quick burst option. Platform drops lose to shield or proper spacing. Now, knowing the counterplay to each option is only one part of the equation. You still need to time it correctly. If you try to react to someone's dash and shield, by the time that you react and input the dash grab, they may have already dropped their shield and are backing off, or they're currently using an attack, or they've spot dodged. Most people only hold their shield for a short amount of time before continuing to move or use another option. So now we know how to beat the most common movement options. Now comes the issue of when. How do I know when to employ each counterplay? The only options that you can punish on reaction are jump in attacks, dash attacks, double jumps, and platform drops. If your opponent jumps in, you can react to their initial jump by bringing up your shield. And then, if the attack lands on your shield and it's an unsafe attack, you can grab them out of your shield. If the attack is safe on shield, then you're out of luck and you have to keep shielding or roll away. You can also react to a jump by dashing away, and if the attack misses, then you can dash back in and punish the whiffed attack. Dash attacks. If you're already holding shield at mid-range, or you're at long range and you see the opponent's initial dash towards you, you can punish them out of shield. Double jump. If your opponent jumps and then double jumps, they'll be in the air long enough for you to recognize the situation and then catch their landing. Platform drops. If your opponent is on a platform, it is highly likely that they'll drop through the platform and attack. So, if you run underneath and start shielding in anticipation for an attack, then you can punish out of shield. To challenge movement options that are too fast to react to, you need to time your options accordingly. This requires you to know what your opponent is going to do ahead of time. But how do we do that? What is the nature of making a read? Is there a science to it, or do top players just have some sort of sixth sense? Well, luckily for you, there is a formula for this, and you should never be making a guess when you're reading somebody. These are two entirely different things. You can always know what your opponent will do ahead of time by using data. So, let's unpack this idea. How do I read my opponent's movement? To make a read or a prediction in any fighting game, you must first identify the situation that you are currently in. Ask yourself, are you at mid-range, close range, ledge trapping, juggling? Your opponent will pick different options based on the current state of the game and their position relative to yours. For example, If you're at close range and your opponent has a jab that's frame 2, it's very likely that they will jab you. But if they're trapped in the corner, they may not pick the same option. Once you take note of the current state of the game, then record your opponent's action and then save it. Finally, once you reach the same state of the game, you can use that saved data to make a prediction about what your opponent will pick with a much higher percentage rate of success than if you were to just make a random guess. Human beings are built to adhere to patterns, so it's not such a radical conclusion that when someone lands with an attack, that they're likely to do it again. So now we understand how a read is made, recognizing the game state, recording the opponent's option, and then when we return to that state, using the previous interaction to make a prediction. So now let's apply this logic to the neutral game and movement specifically. Neutral is defined by both players having an equal amount of influence over the game's state, meaning that no one player has a clear advantage. Basically, no attacks are being exchanged at this point, and both players are vying for either a positional advantage or to land an attack on their opponent. Now, because no player has a clear advantage, most neutral exchanges will occur at mid to long range. This is the current game state. So when trying to make a read on your opponent's movement in neutral, first understand that the current game state is the both of you standing at either mid-range or long range. Normally, this range exists just outside of each other's burst range. Burst range meaning the amount of space your opponent can cover immediately with an attack. So, whenever you and your opponent enter this position, now's the time to record their option. Pay attention. Are they dashing into a shield? Jumping forward and attacking? Jumping forward and double jumping? Dashing forward and then dashing back? Or falling through the platform and attacking? Once you've recorded the option, simply wait until the game state returns to that position. Once you and your opponent reach the same position, now you can assume that they will repeat the same option that they did previous. The really cool thing about the neutral game is that the state of the game either doesn't change or it repeats itself in rapid succession. What I mean by this is that the game state may enter into mid-range, then long range, and then right back to mid-range. Or you and the opponent may stay at mid-range for an extended period of time. So as opposed to recording your opponent's option during a landing state, and then waiting for them to enter that landing state again, or trying to force that state to occur, during the neutral game, the state will repeat itself almost automatically. Now, because the game state repeats itself so rapidly, this also requires you to respond rapidly as well. Now that we understand the game state and have recorded our opponent's option, once the game state repeats, we employ the counterplay according to the data that we saved. For example, Mario and Bowser are at long range, and Bowser dashes into mid-range and pulls up his shield in anticipation for Mario to use an attack. He then dashes back into long range as to not be grabbed out of his shield for holding it too long. Now, because situations repeat so quickly in neutral and Bowser is already back at long range, we can assume that in just a few seconds he will dash in and shield again. So, we can preemptively grab him out of his shield, thus winning us the neutral. We can then use this method to predict any movement option in neutral by using the natural human tendency to adhere to a pattern. Let's apply this to another situation. Palutena and Mario are at mid-range, and Palutena uses a short hop bear to safely apply pressure and then jumps back. This is a situation where the game state doesn't really change that much. You and Palu are still at mid-range, and it's very likely not only that she will use fair again, but at the very least, she will jump again. So, upon seeing the forward air for the first time, we can make the prediction that Palu will either jump again, or anticipate the next forward air. With this knowledge, we can either air-to-air, anti-air, or whiff punish the next forward air. In short, If you feel lost in neutral, just pay attention to the movement option your opponent uses in the mid to long range, and then use that data to make a prediction or a read so you can gain an advantage. Remember the counterplay to each movement option and train yourself to respond quickly. If you would like to start practicing this, then I recommend you start by scouting out just one of the movement options that I've listed here, and training your brain to respond to the visual stimuli. A good one to start with is either dash into shield or jumping in and attacking, as these are the most common of the most common approach options. Stay outside of your opponent's burst range and look for these two options. Do not rush in. If you want to improve your ability at playing the neutral game, don't attack your opponent. Remain at mid-range until you see the option that you're looking for and then counter it. I like to call these signals. Wait around and look for a punishable movement option or signal that you can punish. Once you see the signal of jump, then you can feel confident about going for an air-to-air or catch a landing attack. To reiterate, if you're practicing this for the first time, start with one signal, and then start to improve your ability to react and predict from there, adding on more signals as you go. You'll start with reacting to jump in attacks. Then from there, you can add in more movement options to your repertoire, and then you'll be able to play neutral effectively, anticipate, and even predict options that your opponent will do in neutral, allowing you to win neutral more often and much quicker than you ever did before. Just like I said earlier, there are hundreds of options that your opponent can use in neutral, and these are just the most common. Don't overload yourself by trying to anticipate and react to all possible movement options in neutral right off the bat. You need to work your way up to it. Now, to round this off, let me introduce you to a pet theory I've had since Smash 4. I like to call it the rule of seconds. Basically, this is just an interesting phenomenon that we can abuse in game. For whatever reason, people tend to repeat movement options a lot, like immediately after doing them. This normally happens with things like short hopping, dashing, or holding shield, but when someone does a quick movement option that's seemingly innocuous, they'll usually do it a second time right away, without thinking about it. Just small things like, hey, they short hopped once at mid-range? What do you know, they short hopped again, or they dashed in? They're probably gonna dash back right away. So basically, if I see someone jump once, I'm just gonna assume that they'll do it a second time, see, rule of seconds, and then go punish it right away. Of course, this won't work all the time, but I just thought I'd share because I think it's cool. Now, I think it's about time we wrap this up and recap all that we've learned today. So, let's review all the ideas that we've covered today. Anticipation. Understand what the most common movement options are in neutral, aka mid-range, and anticipate them so you can pick up on the patterns faster. These options are jump in, jump, double jump, dash in and out, and then dash and shield. How to read. Recognize what state of the game that you're currently in and record the option your opponent chooses. When you return to that same position, use that data to make a prediction. Train your brain. Know the counterplay to beat these options in neutral, and train your brain to respond to them quickly so you can gain an advantage. The rule of seconds. People often repeat a movement option at least 2 times while at mid or long range, so watch out for that and try to predict it. In conclusion, if you don't know what to do in neutral, just stay out of your opponent's burst range, record and save what option your opponent uses, and then make your approach based on that small bit of data that you gathered. Follow all of these principles, pick one option to start looking out for, and you'll start to see your neutral game improve, and you won't be so confused when going up against a new opponent. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I sincerely hope that you were able to understand and absorb the information here, and that it actually helped you. If anything was confusing to you, or you don't understand anything, or have any more questions, just comment below, or you can head over to my Twitch stream on twitch.tv/turtlessSB and just ask me right there. Every week, Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I do free coaching and VOD review streams. So if you have a VOD that you want looked at, or just any general questions, hit me up there. You can also follow me on Twitter, where I post stuff like this. Don't forget to let me know what video you'd like to see next. And remember to keep fighting, you idiot! And class dismissed.
That's the time you really need to be patient. How did you wait? You can survive?
Yeah, you can survive on Smashville, Yoshi's, and Palace.
Yo! How did I not know that till now?